Hello, and welcome everyone to this special masterclass on how to get yourself into the blogging flow and then up-leveling your content to all of the social media channels that you really want it out there in. I am Dr. Andrea Pennington, Managing Director for Make Your Mark Global, and my co-host today is the one and only Sarah Kate Brandis, hailing in from England. And I am so thrilled to be having this masterclass because so many people, actually we have a joke at Make Your Mark Global. All of my authors and people who are in my mentoring program, they keep saying, oh, can I steal Sarah? Can I clone Sarah? I need a Sarah. And so our joke is everybody needs a Sarah. And so I'm super excited that we have this time to share Sarah's brain because she truly is a master at creating great blog content, creating things in people's voices. She actually writes some of my stuff, guys, and it sounds like me at this point. and she's also a real master at taking an idea and enlarging it and then knowing how to make it sound appealing with headlines and pictures and different things for e-newsletters, for blog posts, for Instagram, for Facebook. So without further ado, I will allow our lovely co-host to take the reins because she has a lot of content to share. She's also a natural born teacher, kind of like me. And she has this amazing background that actually works well for me as a doctor. She's got this neuroscience background, and she's been doing creative writing for a long time, including her own books, as well as helping us in our publishing at Make Your Mark Global. And her work as a marketer for several brands and individual coaches and healers is really what actually brought her to my attention a couple of years ago. So she's been a really great teacher for people to learn how to demystify some of this marketing stuff and really tailors it to the coaches and in particular the soul conscious, heart inspired people. So Sarah, I'm going to let you take the lead so that you can lead us through the content and show us how we can all be more fabulous and amazing and bringing the brilliance out of our head and our heart to the world.
Oh, thank you. That's really nice. I'm all red now. I'm usually behind the scenes being a ghostwriter, so I don't often get all the attention, but I'm going to enjoy it while it's here. So Charlotte's just said, all I want for Christmas is a Sarah. Festive hashtag. Brilliant. So yeah, usually I'm behind the scenes. As Andrea says, I do a lot for Make Your Mark Global and Innate Vitality. I've been in marketing for about nearly 7 years now. But before that, I had a completely random, accidental career of managing pubs, nothing to do with what I did now. And then, as I wrote about in the Make Your Mark Global book, Time to Rise, I had an existential crisis. I was all, what am I doing with my life? And I decided to go to university, which is where I studied cognitive neuroscience. So that's how Andrea and I bonded over having this nerdy interest in the brain and in writing about it. And that, as they say, is history. So I've only got an hour. I'm pretty good at keeping things short and sweet. So I'm going to power through a few different things today. We're recording this, so you're going to all get the replay. So
Sorry, that's my fault.
I was probably shouting a bit loudly. I've got the microphone right here. So if at any point I'm shouting or whispering or going too fast, just put a message in the chat and tell me to speak up, slow down, whatever it is. But also we're recording this, so you can just replay any bits that fly past you. So don't worry about taking it all in, just try and enjoy and go over the bits later, and you can ask me questions at the end as well. So part one, we're going to talk all about blog creation because it's such a common problem for life coaches, healers, light workers, all the sort of people that we normally work with. They're very, very tuned in to what they do, but marketing what they do is a really big problem for them because blogging is a whole different world. It's not only writing, which can be intimidating enough if you're not very well rehearsed at that, but it's also the tech side of what do you do with that writing? How do you get it out there into the world? And I know an awful lot of coaches that I talk to have this intention almost daily. I'm going to write something today. I'm going to do some content marketing. And they make their tea and they sit down at their laptop and they look at a blank Word document, and then the mojo just drains from them and they're like, I don't know what I'm going to write about. And the procrastination thing that happens then, where you start with I'm just going to mow the lawn, I'm just going to do the laundry, I'm just going to walk the dog, and the blog post never happens. So I think where a lot of people go wrong, if you like, though I don't want to put it in negative terms, but where you go wrong, I think it all starts with not having enough ideas, or not believing that you have enough ideas. I actually think that you've probably got 101 ideas every day, but what you probably do is that you judge them, you overthink them, and you chase them away. And before you know it, you've wiped the slate clean. Every time you've had an idea, you've gone, no, that's rubbish, that's not of any value to anyone, that's already been said. So first of all, if it has already been said, it's not been said by you with your own unique twist on it. And secondly, you've got plenty of value to share with the world. You just need to have a little bit of confidence in that. So I want to, first of all, say something a bit random, and then do something a bit random to demonstrate how easy it is to get a blog post idea from a tiny seed. And then what we'll do in doing dishes, Charlotte says, yeah. And then from that tiny seed of an idea, what we're going to do in the second part is we're going to use this template, which I've emailed out. And don't panic if you haven't printed it. You don't need it. It's a very basic structure. You could write this yourself. The point of the template is that we just take the idea and we just fill in the boxes. So the structure is done for you. From one tiny idea, add structure equals blog post. It's super easy. And if you use that time and time again, you barely have to think. It's just getting stuff out of your head into a structure. Then you can put it online because it's ready to go. So I said I was going to say something random and weird. Do any of you watch Family Guy? Type in the comments if you do. Some of you won't have ever seen Family Guy, and this might sound really strange. So if you've never seen Family Guy, I'm very sorry, and bear with me. This might make sense in a minute. There's an episode of Family Guy where Peter Griffin does this random cutaway thing, as he often does, and he's talking about a fictional time when he was the jumping off point for Robin Williams. So in this episode, he's talking about weird jobs that he had, and he's like, yeah, that was a weird job, like when I was Robin Williams's jumping off points guy. And it cuts away to Robin Williams sitting on the sofa next to Peter Griffin, and Peter Griffin is feeding him jumping off points for his comedy stylings. So Peter says, workman on a building site, and Robin Williams goes, whoa, and starts catcalling and doing impressions of workman on a building site until he runs out of steam, and just like Robin Williams does. And then Peter says something else like cats, and Robin Williams is all, oh, cats, and starts doing impressions of cats. And basically he's feeding him jumping off points, and Robin Williams is creating a stream of consciousness from this. And this sounds silly, but I'm saying it to say that this is kind of like what my brain does when I'm thinking of jumping off points for my blog posts. It's from one word, builders, cats, ponies, whatever, that ideas start to flow. So that was the weird thing I wanted to say. And now here's the weird thing I want to do. I want you guys to give me a jumping off point, and I'm going to see if I can turn it into a blog post for you. So yeah, test me live. Let's see how this goes. It could be awful. But I haven't done this live before, by the way.
This will be interesting.
This will be funny, but tell me in the comments what your niche is. So are you a stress coach? Are you an energy healer? Tell me what you are so that I've got the twist to give it. And then tell me what the random jumping off point is. And it could be doing the dishes. It could be, Charlotte said ponies about something else. Oh, Malin, okay, you're in there. So personal leadership coach, brilliant. So Malin, I've got your niche, that's personal leadership coach. Now I want you to give me a jumping off point. So say something random like it's raining or the car won't start. Waiting for Malin. No pressure, Malin. I don't know where I'm going with this, by the way. I'm just going to see what my brain does.
I love the improv. This is awesome.
I've only ever done this one-on-one with people on Skype.
Come on, Malin. We're waiting on you. Give us
Malin.
a topic.
Or I'm going to have to take somebody else's jumping off point. Andrea, if you think of one, shout it out. And I'll give it the personal leadership coach twist.
It's sunny.
It's sunny. All right, awesome. So I'm Malin, I'm a personal leadership coach, and I'm looking out the window and it's sunny, and that's inspiring me. So, do you know what comes to mind straight away for me is that idea of blue sky thinking. the way that people are much more willing to invest in big outlandish ideas when the weather is sunny as opposed to when it's raining. So that would be my jumping off point for a blog post. So I'd pull a few ideas from that. People are much more open to big outlandish ideas when the weather's nice. You could, if you wanted to, pull in a few bits about the neuroscience of what daylight does to your brain. You could pull in a little bit about mood. You could pull in a little bit about group psychology and the mentality of a whole bunch of people together enjoying the sunshine. You've got some threads there. You take the template and you fill it in and you have a blog post.
Sweet.
That wasn't too bad, was it? It could have been worse. So, but I like to do this with one-to-one clients sometimes, just to demonstrate how quick and easy it can be. Thank you, Heather. Heather's clapping.
Yay.
So does everyone get that, or does that need to be clarified for anyone? Oh, thank you, Melon. All right, cool. So
should we put in a link to the PDF? Does everybody have it?
Everyone should have it, and if not, I'll send it out again with the replay. But it's just in my Google Drive. But I put it on both the emails, so it should be. But also there's slides as well, so you don't need to worry too much, guys. So what we should do really next is, now that you've got how I don't judge an idea, I don't overthink it, I just grab it, run with it, and see what I can do with it. That's how simple it is to take an idea. Lots of people commented, sorry, I can't go through all of you, but you've all got one now. So no excuses, you've got one to use yourselves later. Blog post, let me get my slides up and let me show you how to use this. Okie dokie, I'm just going to share my screen with you guys. Cool, can everyone see my screen?
Yes, we can now.
Excellent.
Sweet.
There we go. So basically that's your blog post template, and there's really 3 parts to it, and it's no different from an essay you would have written at college or at university. Anything's got the same structure. It's an introduction, the middle where you deliver the message, and the end. And the only bit that you really need to think about and make original is the middle part 2, where you deliver the message. So this is often where I start, actually. So from my crazy Peter Griffin, Robin Williams thread of pulling an idea out of nowhere and running with it, I'll then think, what's my message? So with Malin, it's going to be things about how blue sky thinking on a sunny day can influence the board meeting you're sat in, and what you need to bear in mind as the leader in that room. Are people being extra optimistic today, and how might they feel 3 months from now when it's winter outside and everyone's miserable? Are they still going to be behind this idea? This is really the message. So this is the conversation part, the middle, and that's what this is what I would write first, because once you've got that down, that's your idea. And then the introduction to it, all you're doing in an introduction is telling people what you're about to tell them. So when I was at uni, I remember a lecturer explaining how to structure an essay to me, and she said, introduction, middle, conclusion. Tell them what you're going to tell them. Tell them what you told them. So you're not really writing all that much that's very different. You've got the big chunk in the middle. This is where you deliver the message. And then before that, just introduce. So it's sort of like here's what we're going to be talking about, a little bit of an introduction to the topic. If there are any terms, any terminology that you're going to be using that people might not understand, here's where you introduce it and slip it in. So, for example, I'm thinking about an article we recently wrote about one of our global luminaries, Yvette. And before I got to the chunk, the body of talking about Yvette's journey, in the introduction, I introduced Yvette and I explained what EAM stands for, her company, Energy Alignment Method, introduced her a little bit of her bio, and then delivered the message in the middle. And then the summary or the conclusion at the bottom. The very important thing I remember from university, from writing essays there, was don't tell them anything new, just recap, just reiterate your point to make sure it's really punchy. Now, the main difference between a piece of content marketing, so a blog post, and an essay, apart from the sheer length of it, and the fact that no one's going to mark it, it's much more fun. Obviously, because it's marketing, you want to put a little call to action in the bottom there. Maybe not all of the time, but a lot of the time. So just to make sure that you're not forgetting the point of your marketing and of putting your message out there. You're giving a lot of value in this blog post. Right at the end, it's, you know, it's often worth slipping in a, by the way, if you want to check out my offerings as a coach, or by the way, sign up to my next masterclass, or by the way, download my ebook. That's where it goes, right at the bottom, at the end of the summary. So it's really that simple. You introduce the point, you make the point, and then you recap the point, and that's all a blog post is. Now, looking at it like that, does that sound scary, or does that sound like perfectly okay? So what you've got on your template here, it's 3 pages. Page 1 is the instructions. So in each section, beginning, middle, and end, I've just basically told you what to do. There's 2 more boxes up here. This is the working title and the SEO title. So what I often do is come up with the title after I've written the main body and then introduced and concluded. I'll come up with the title, and then I'll think about it a little bit, and I'll slightly reword it to be more SEO friendly. Nobody freak out. I'm going to explain what on earth I'm talking about. Heather's like, phew. So on page 2, I've given you an example. So I've written a blog post and I've chunked it down into the template so you can see how it all fits. So I've introduced the topic, delivered the message, and summarized at the bottom. My working title for this blog post about how to not repeat old mistakes was what I learned about repeating old mistakes, because that was the original thread that I had. I was thinking about, gosh, all the mistakes I've made in my life and what I've learned from them. What can I tell other people in a blog post? And then I've reworked this into the final title that I'm going to use with SEO in mind. So if you don't know, SEO stands for search engine optimization. Sounds really intimidating if you're not used to that sort of language. All it really means is you're writing your title in a way that makes Google search find it easier, because what you really want is to become more visible. The point of you putting all this content out there online is to really, you know, to let new people find you, as well as re-engage the people that have already found you and keep reminding them how awesome you are, so they eventually come to you for your services. You also want to reach some new people. So if I was worried that I'd been making a lot of mistakes in my life and I was Googling for some help, what might I type into Google in the search bar? Maybe a question, maybe a how-to. So my SEO title has become how to not repeat old mistakes, because it's a sort of question that you might type into a search bar. Now, if my blog title is the same as the search question that gets put in, there's a good chance it's going to get pulled up in the search results. Does that make sense to everyone? Is anyone struggling with that concept? Want me to say it a different way? Or I can't actually see the comments right now. Is everyone all right, Andrea?
Yes, there are no new questions or comments in, so you're good to go.
Either everyone's passed out or it's fine.
I think you're doing great.
Good, thank you. And then the very, very last thing is a blank one. If you printed this out, you were probably cursing me at this point. Like, why have I just printed this? This is for you to draw on. Like, this is for you to take to a coffee shop and fill in yourself on your own time, and hate me for wasting your ink. Sorry, but it's pretty. So I really just want you to look at the instructions on the first page, look at the example on the second page, and then take the third page and just go have fun with it and just fill it in. And you know what? No one's marking it. So don't be afraid to make mistakes. Just try, because again, it's about not overthinking. It's about enjoying the process of writing. Now, I'm just going to have a quick, not too subtle look at my notes, because I want to make sure I don't miss anything before I move on. So
I love that point, Sarah. I think it's easy if we just look at it as play. Just look at it as an adventure. If you just wanted to share what was in your heart or on your mind without worrying about, is it perfect, then you can look at this as just a fun experiment. And the more that you do it, I find the easier it becomes. You just get into a flow, and you'll never know what that inspiration might be doing for someone else. If you judge it with your rational thinking mind, you might be squashing your intuition that was tuned into some soul all the way across the world that really needed that bit of information from you.
Cool. Definitely. Yeah, that's it. As a writer, I often think everything is a draft. It's almost a mantra for me. When I sit down to write, I don't want to get blocked looking at a blank screen. So I just start. My fingers are going before I'm even consciously aware of it, because I just tell myself everything's a draft until it's not. And at that point, all you're doing is spell checking and tidying stuff up. So, and you're not looking at a blank screen anymore. So it's really easy. I put down a different example earlier. Maybe I'll just give you guys a different example of turning an idea into a concept for a blog post, just because the one I did earlier was on the fly and possibly a bit random. So one I prepared earlier is something that often happens to me when I'm online is that I'm surprised it hasn't happened yet. One of my cats will jump up on my keyboard and they'll block the camera and possibly stamp on something and delete a slide. But it's usually funny when that happens. So it's an unplanned interruption, and that's the initial thread of an idea. So just to recap again, what we do is we take the initial thread of an idea. So something inspires us. It's raining, it's sunny, it's a blue sky thinking kind of day. There's a cat on my laptop destroying my PowerPoint. So for me, I'm a content marketer. So I would put my niche spin on it. So for me, I might write a blog post about how to create content when things are going wrong. I might end up writing a blog post about how video for your business doesn't have to be perfect. That would be ideal for me, because the sort of content I put out there is how-to stuff and teaching people how to do content marketing. So yeah, that's another example that I thought might be useful. Actually, if you look at my YouTube channel from last year, from my podcast series, Solopreneurship Made Simple, episode 1 has outtakes of my cat Ivan just stomping all over the keyboard. It's really good. Okay, cool. So let's go on. We've done structure already, really. Wow, we're doing pretty well for time. Should we go on to upcycling a blog post into content?
Yeah, well, before you get to that,
okay.
There's one thing that Karen Joy Almond in the US has posted as a question. She's getting some blog posts ready for her new website, and she's wondering about word length. How wordy is too wordy? And if you have a really long topic, what are your thoughts about making it into a series?
Oh, yes. So there's two really good reasons to make it into a series. I'm going to talk about SEO, nobody panic. So first of all, the latest advice from Google is that shorter is better, because as we're becoming more of a video generation, people are reading less and less and people are getting lazy. So shorter blog posts, and Google, the latest advice was 300 to 600 words. That was the latest advice that I read. So don't go too far beyond that unless you've got a really loyal readership who are reading your blog post to the end. If you're appealing to new people, then try and keep it short. And the second reason that a series of blog posts would be awesome from an SEO point of view is that you can do something called deep links. So what do I mean by deep links? So if you've got, think about your own probably WordPress based website, whatever you're using, Karen. If you've got one blog post, that's great. If you've got 2 or 3 blog posts, first of all, you've got more content, more pages for Google to find. Secondly, you can deep link those pages to each other. And all deep link means is you're linking one page of your website to another page of your website. So in blog post number 2, you can refer back to blog post number 1 and link to the URL of blog post number 1. And then in blog post 3, you can do it twice. You can refer back to blog post number 1 and blog post number 2. And that information tells Google that you've got lots of relevant content. So I'm not going to go any deeper than that, because I don't understand any deeper than that. And I will just my brain will blow up. But yeah, basically there's 2 good reasons to do that. I would absolutely make it a series. And if you don't mind doing video, if you've got the energy and the time for it, then also mix up your medias a bit. So add a bit of video to it, add some images to it, which we can then recycle onto other platforms. So you can put a nice square quote card for each blog post on Instagram and say, hey guys, come on over to my website and read the full post. But we're just about to get into upcycling. So
well, before you jump into upcycling, Dr. Raj has a great question that I know you're going to resonate with. And that is, what do you do if you have a whole lot of interests and many things to share? Like if you don't have one specific niche because you're a multi-passionate, like Andrea. Believe me, Sarah's had to deal with that because I have so many different, buckets, as I call them.
Cool. So actually, Dr. Raj and I started to talk a teeny bit about this on Instagram. It is on my list. I was going to get to it, but we'll do it now because it's really relevant. So something that I asked her was, do you have a common thread? So, okay, with Andrea's content, for example, because I'm sure you guys are all familiar, Andrea's got lots of different interests, but they've all got, well, for the most part, they've all got common threads to them. So things like self-love and wellness, spirituality, energy, all of those things run through them. If you can pick the common thread that runs through them, then you can write about different topics and interests, as long as you're putting the same twist on it, giving it the same brand voice, and for Google's sake, giving it similar keywords throughout. So it's not random, but it's the same voice talking about different topics with your own twist. That's good. However, if you've got two very separate businesses going on, if in the daytime you're a management consultant and on the weekends you're a pet groomer, then those are not to be on the same website. And as Ghostbusters say, you don't cross the streams, you keep them very, very separate. So it's really about if you can reasonably tie it all together or not. So Andrea's got 3 websites, 4 actually. We've got Sensual Vitality, we've got AndreaPennington.com, we've got MakeYourMarkGlobal.com, and we've got InnateVitality.com. And sometimes we've got content that we're producing that is relevant to go on 2 or 3 of those sites because they've all got the same theme. And other times things are very separate. Certainly, I found that sensualvitality.com, that content can be quite separate, and we don't put it on the other websites because it's just not as relevant to the other brand voices that we've got. It's quite a case by case thing, and it's not something I can give you very clear blanket advice for. I can give you quite annoying, vague, figure it out for yourself advice, and you've kind of got to use your judgment and ask yourself, if I write a blog post about wellness and Chinese herbs, and if I write a blog post about stress in the workplace, are they coming from the same brand voice, and will they have the same sort of keyword rich content in them that Google would recognize them as being relevant to each other? And I'm always thinking about Google, because you want to make sure that your website's not being pushed down the Google search results because it's considered spammy. What you've got to think about when you're putting your blog content out there on your own website is just making sure that it looks like a good quality website. So your content needs to be relevant to the other pages of your website. So each of your blog posts needs to have similar keywords. So Charlotte, for example, is an animal healer. So she might write about several different animal care topics. She might write about antibiotics for her horse. She might write about, I don't know, the amount of space that a guinea pig needs, but there's going to be a common theme throughout it. I'm just guessing at what you write about, Charlotte. I don't know, I'm sorry. But it's going to have a similar theme throughout. Am I making a dog's dinner of that? Is it confusing?
No, I think that's very good. And I think that you're totally right with separating things out onto different websites.
Makes sense. Thank you, Dr. Raj.
Awesome.
Cool. Yeah, so hopefully that makes sense. It's quite a hard one to answer. So if you want to ping me a message on Instagram or Facebook later, feel free. I will. I can answer it more personally if you speak to me one-to-one outside of this webinar, because it's quite hard to give a blanket answer for all. Have you got any more questions that I should get to? Let's have a look before I move on.
The last thing was just, what was your YouTube channel? But then I think we should keep moving on to content.
I'll stick all that stuff in the email later, so you can find me there. No worries. Okay, let's move on to... Right, so upcycling. So once you've gotten to all the effort of writing a lovely new blog post, what a lot of people and a lot of my clients used to do at the beginning before I'd slap this into them was they would write a blog post, they'd stick it on their website, they might share the link on their Facebook page once, and then that was it. It was put to bed and it was never shared again. And what a waste. And I think partly it's because people just don't know what to do. but also partly I think some people have this worry that they don't want to be repeating themselves on social media. They feel like they can't keep resharing the same thing, and that's just not true. For one, your audience, so people that are following you on Facebook, for example, are not going to be reading every single thing you post. They're not even going to be seeing every single thing you post, because Facebook doesn't show things as you post them in a real-time kind of way. Facebook has its own crazy mathematical algorithm going on that none of us need to worry about. It's a headache. It's none of my business. Don't want to know what they're doing. But I mean, there are things to know about it, but that's a much more advanced class later on. But just for now, it's enough to say that just know that if you put a blog post out to 600 fans, maybe 6 of them are going to see it, So don't worry that you're boring people by repeating stuff. Don't even worry about it. And, just, you've got to keep putting your message out there, because otherwise you're not going to get a steady stream of interest to you. And that's really what content marketing is for. So don't worry about repeatedly posting the same thing. I'm going to show you how to upcycle it into different formats anyway. So even if you are just sharing one blog post link over and over again, you're advertising that blog post in various different ways. Just subtly turning over my notes here. Just want to make sure I don't miss out anything important. Cool. So I thought we'd start with LinkedIn. So something I advise my clients to do once they've posted their blog post on their own website is to then literally just copy and paste it into LinkedIn. So rather than just go and share the link, which if you look on the side here where it says start a post, that's where you would go and drop in a link and just go, hey guys, read my blog post, here it is, boof. Instead of that, take the write an article option, which a lot of people don't even realize is there. So it's that little blue link underneath that says write an article. And it's LinkedIn's own article publishing tool. And LinkedIn like you to use it. So if you do use it, they favor it more in their algorithm, which means they show it to more people. Also, it just looks really professional and nice. So if you click that blue link, this is what you get. You get this amazingly simple drag and drop editor that just is so nice. It makes everything look really smart. So you press the plus button to add your header image, you copy and paste in your header, and you copy and paste in your text. This little box here as well with the next to where it says right here, there's a little box with a plus sign. If you click that, you can add images, you can add a link to a video on YouTube. It's just really, really easy to use, and it publishes it on LinkedIn. And because it's their own tool, because they want you to use it, they will show it to more people. And it makes your content look really professional as well. So if you've got a slightly out of date website that you're not particularly proud of, as a lot of people do, put your stuff on LinkedIn as well. I think for coaches and healers, I think LinkedIn is really underrated. I think we all assume that it's just for corporates, and it's really not. I mean, there certainly are a lot of corporate people on there, but a lot of them are really stressed and they probably really like your services. So get on there and market yourself. My client Beatrix is a sleep expert over here in the UK, and the vast majority of her inquiries come from LinkedIn. She's a coach. She teaches sleep. But yeah, you'd think it was quite a soft thing, but actually no, it really works on LinkedIn, because a lot of people on there are ingrates who've got chronic insomnia, so they flock to Beatrix. She's doing amazingly well. Yeah, so that's what I wanted to say about LinkedIn. Do not be afraid that you're duplicating your content by putting it on LinkedIn, because LinkedIn is a social media platform. It's not the same as just copy and pasting it to a friend's website. It's really not. And then let's talk about Twitter for a minute. So there's a friend of mine, David. Andrea, you met him at Derry's Mastermind last year in London.
Yes, I remember.
Guy.
I remember.
Yeah. So I helped him out a little bit with this, because to begin with, David had a Twitter account, but he didn't really know what he was doing with it. So he would just tweet with text, and he'd use half of his character allowance with the full link for his his blog post. So he'd copy and paste the URL to his blog post, he'd stick it in his tweet, and he'd be like, yeah, read my blog post, tweet, and that was it. And so of course what people on Twitter are seeing from him is just a line of boring text and then a long URL, which looks boring and messy and ugly, and nobody wants that. So he wasn't getting any interaction at all. So I told him to, first of all, shorten his links, and then, you know, don't forget to use the odd hashtag, because, you know, that's what Twitter's built on, and add an image, because images are eye-catching. And is it 60% of humans are visual learners as well? We're all very, very attracted to images. So if you put an image on your tweet, you're going to get so much more interest. So all he's done, he's not created anything new. He's just upcycling his content for Twitter. So you take your URL for your blog post that's on your website, or your LinkedIn one, if that's what you prefer to use. You go to something like bit.ly.com, you pop it in, it's free, it's a free tool, it shortens your link for you down to something tiny. David here has used Buffer, so he's got a link that's buff.ly. Doesn't matter, you know, they're all much of a muchness. He's used a couple of smart hashtags, which means people are going to find him better, business and tech fail. And he's added a free stock image. It hasn't cost him a penny, it's taken 5 minutes, and now he's got a tweet that's going to direct people to read his blog post. So tiny little changes, huge difference. That's Twitter, really. And there's lots of other things you can put on Twitter, which I'll get to shortly. Something I love to do is to create quote cards and graphics and things to complement your blog posts. So whenever you're doing a blog post, you're going to put a header image on it, and you're probably going to choose a free stock image from a stock image site, and that's perfectly fine. And when you go to share this on Facebook, you might just use that image, but you could also create some nice header images to go with it. Excuse me, I just need a drink. So you might recognize this image here on the slide. This is from the ad that you guys clicked on to sign up for this masterclass. So this was something that we put out on Facebook and don't we put it on LinkedIn? We should have done. Slap on the wrist if I didn't. And it also went in the newsletter that we send out. So this is where it came from. This is a free tool. This website is called canva.com. I do have a fancy paid upgraded version of it because I use it every single day of my life, even on my days off. I love it so much. But the free version is perfectly adequate. So you guys don't need to spend a penny on graphic design. Seriously, you can make some amazing things in Canva, absolutely free. So previously, you may have looked at other people's graphics and you may have been put off from getting your own. You might have thought, oh, I've got to pay a graphics team to do that for me. I haven't got the budget for that. You don't have to. There's so much stuff you can do for free. If you've got a little bit of creativity, and I'm pretty sure everyone on this call has got a bit of creativity in their bones, this is the fun side of marketing. This is where you get to be creative. You get to choose your color palette, you get to choose your images, choose your font. And Canva is a drag and drop builder. So there are just all these free things in here. There are picture frames, you click it, you drag it across, you upload your photos to it. I made this from scratch in like 3 minutes. It's the easiest thing and it's really fun. So I cannot possibly rave about Canva enough. Inside my inner sanctum, which is something I'll tell you guys about later, I've got tutorial videos on how to use Canva as well, but you can probably figure it out for yourselves just from playing with it. It's super fun. Now, from creating things in Canva, you can upcycle your content into so many different cool things. So I'm a really big fan of quote cards. So something I've done here, just to give you guys some examples, is I've taken a little bit of text from, if you remember on the template, from my example blog post. In the middle, where I've delivered the message, this is a little bit of the text. So what I'm suggesting you guys do, when you've written your blog post, pick out 1 or 2 lines of text that are quotable. You know, when you've written something really cool and you look at it and you're like, yeah, I hope that's on my gravestone. You know, that's really cool. This is something you can just copy and paste onto a slide in Canva, tweak the design, make it pretty. And that's a quote card that you can then go and share on various social media platforms. You can make it square for Instagram, you can make it tall for Pinterest, you can make it wide for LinkedIn. You can do so many fun things with it. So from this one line of text, I've just dropped it onto a slide, made it colorful, put some free graphics behind it. And then over here, here's another little bit of text I've taken from my template. So again, it's something you could pluck from your blog post, pop it onto a slide, upload a free stock image behind it, and there you go. It's that simple. Here's some examples you guys might recognize. If you've been following Andrea for a while, then you'll remember that we took the Time to Rise book and we turned that into a ton of content. We did interviews with all of the authors, which went out on 2 of Andrea's websites, and many of them were accepted by Thrive Global as well. So they've again been repurposed to a much bigger global audience there, which is great for our authors. And also from their chapters in the book, I took a quotable chunk from each of their chapters, something that I read and went, oh yeah, that's a real quotable thing. And I dropped it onto a slide and I made it a quote card that we shared on social media. I did all these wide and square for Instagram. So if you're an author, if you've got a book, if you've been in one of Andrea's books, then copy and paste a little chunk from your chapter, stick it on a canvas slide, make some pretty quote cards. And you can make them in your own brand colours as well. You don't have to follow our design ideas. That's what's really fun about it, is you can pick your own brand colours, make it match with your website design and your personal brand. This slide here, bottom left. This is from Andrea's very recent TED Talk, which is not out yet. But as a little sneaky preview, I took a little bit of what she said, popped it on a slide and shared it on Instagram. And everyone was like, ooh, that's exciting. So it doesn't have to be from a blog post. It could be a talk you've given. So if you've been at a networking event and you delivered a little keynote talk and you said something that you thought was cool that would resonate with people, let it resonate with more people. Put it on a slide, put it on Instagram, put it on Pinterest. And the chances are that more people will resonate with it and click on the link that you give them and go and look at your website, and they'll learn a little bit more about you. This is how we start to get new people interested in us. And finally, bottom right, this is from a blog post on innatevitality.com. So this is something that we wrote, and then we made a slide out of it and we put it on Instagram. And then the obvious call to action there when we type in the text on Instagram is say a little something about this, add a lot of hashtags as you can with Instagram to make it really findable. And then the call to action is click the link in the bio, come to the website and read the blog post. It's that simple. So this is a bonkers slide. And this is the most crazy thing I will show you, I swear. This is just to demonstrate the big overview of all the different ways that I recommend that you could, if you wanted to, upcycle a single piece of content. So right in the middle, the pink text, it says your blog post. From that one idea that you had that you then went a bit Robin Williams with and turned it into a full blog post using my template. From there, if you go clockwise, start with images, you can turn it into quote cards for Instagram, quote cards for Pinterest, you can share it on Facebook, you can share it on Twitter. Then next one down, Twitter, you can tweet that blog post with a shortened link like I showed you and with relevant hashtags, and you can put an image that you've taken from a stock image site, or you could put one of your quote cards that you've made there to complement it. Then on Facebook, you can share the blog link, you can share the quote cards that you made to go with that. You could also do a Facebook Live video about your blog post. You know, it's not a million miles to go from a blog post to a script for a little video. Often one complements the other for Andrea and I. So whether I'm doing her content or whether I'm doing something of my own, it's either starts with a video and then gets sort of semi-transcribed into a blog post, or it starts with a blog post and then we'll go, oh, that's an interesting topic. I'll go on YouTube and I'll talk about it. So Facebook Live's great for that as well. And going around clockwise, LinkedIn article, you can share a linked post to your website, or you can go and create that article where you literally just copy and paste your blog post, drop it in there and let LinkedIn share it with your followers as a LinkedIn native post, which means using their site. That's all native means. You can also write some shorter posts with a quote card. So you can start a post on LinkedIn, upload a quote card you've made, and just share maybe a little snippet from your blog post. So again, something that's just a little takeaway. And then if you've made a YouTube video, which I've just noticed the typo, share your YouTube video. Then, whoops. If you've got a YouTube video, then you can either embed that in the LinkedIn article, or you can just simply share the link as a share. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. And then of course, the last point, there's video. You can use your blog post as a script. You can record a video for YouTube. You can then take that video and you can embed it on your website and your LinkedIn article, and you can upload that video to Facebook as well. So from one tiny idea, how many pieces of potential content have you got? And it's basically the same message, but you're reiterating it in different formats. So the long format for people who read, the short format for people who read a little bit, the video format for people that don't like to read or prefer video or are more visual. It can be auditory as well. You can make it a podcast if you're so inclined. Last year, I mentioned earlier, I was doing a podcast called Solopreneurship Made Simple. I recorded every episode as a video for YouTube first, because that was that's the way to get extra content out of it. What I then did after I'd made it a YouTube video is I put it into my video processor. I extracted the audio and I uploaded that audio to my WordPress website, which sent it via some tech that I paid for, sent it to iTunes, and it put me out on the iTunes podcast. So that might be a little bit technical and scary for some of you. That could be a couple of steps away in the future. But just to give you an example, it took me, 20 minutes to record a video, and then it's just a bit of playing about and uploading it in different formats. And I got 2 really big pieces of content from that. And then sometimes I would go, that was an interesting episode, let me turn that into a blog post. And I just sort of semi-transcribe what I talked about, turn it into a written piece, and again, upcycle it in various different formats. And so it's like you've got many branches going out there into the online world, bringing people back to the same trunk, which is you, your brand, your website, which is where you and your paid services live. So the more branches that you can grow, the more, video, image, tweets, LinkedIn articles, the more things you can put out there, the more people are going to find you and come back to you. And, at the trunk of your tree, that's where you and your paid services and your coaching business live. So I can see I've got some comments. Let me see if I can open this. Okay. Oh, okay. Should you be on every social media platform? What if you want to be mindful of social media not taking over your life? From Dr. Raj. Brilliant. Should you be on every platform? I don't like the word should. Too many coaches on this call for us to use the word should. Which platforms do you want to be on, and which platforms do you enjoy? I think it's pointless trying to put yourself out there consistently on a platform that you don't enjoy, because if you don't do it consistently, it's, you're going to lose your following. You need to keep being consistent wherever you are. So I'd say pick as many as you can manage, and pick the ones that you like, so that it's not a chore, but it's fun and creative. I don't like Snapchat. I cannot even with Snapchat. It's just noise. I don't use Pinterest. I do like Pinterest, but I don't feel like I want to use it for my business. So I use Instagram and YouTube the most now. I used to use Facebook a lot, so I've got a big following on there, but I don't enjoy Facebook as much now. So what I've done recently is I've hooked up my Instagram app to automatically feed my Facebook page. So every time I do something on Instagram, which I do willingly because it's fun for me, it populates my Facebook feed for me. So yeah, don't do something that you don't like, because you're not going to have the right energy about it. Pick a couple and do them well, rather than spreading yourself thinly. Is that all right? What else have we got? Dr. Raj, can you do all that using Wix, or do you prefer WordPress? And do you have to be very tech savvy? So 6 years ago, when I took my marketing manager job at the coaching school I used to work at, that was my first introduction to WordPress. And I honestly cried my eyes out with frustration. I have never been so confused in my life. I think I tried to do too much too fast. I got straight into the code side of things, didn't know what I was doing. To make it worse, my boyfriend at the time was a software architect. He knew all the code. So he was trying to help, but not help too much. He was being really smug about it. He was all like, oh, you do this, you do that. And I felt like an idiot, and I was so overwhelmed with it. So I say that to say, if you're not very tech savvy, you don't necessarily have to jump into WordPress straight away. Have a look at it, watch some tutorials, see how you feel. You don't have to commit to the first thing you look at. Wix is a lot easier. There are also like other things are available. Squarespace is supposed to be quite easy as well. There's something called Weebly, which is supposed to be quite easy, but I'm familiar with Wix and WordPress, and you can do quite a lot with Wix these days. It's not as basic as it used to be. There's no reason that you have to be on the same website provider forever. If you feel comfortable starting with Wix and then a year or two later moving to WordPress, try that. You can do a lot. You can do SEO stuff with Wix. You can embed videos. You can use sign-up forms. Wix has a lot to offer. I've got a Wix site myself at the moment. I got really fed up with GoDaddy, who I was hosting my WordPress site. So, yeah, and that's another thing. Although it's not just the WordPress site, it's who you host it with as well. Because anybody, even if they're really tech savvy, can have a day where they open their laptop and find that their website is randomly down because their host has had an issue. So, it's not necessarily the most fancy and the most expensive thing that's going to work for you, and you don't necessarily need the most expensive or fancy thing. I'm all for starting with Wix. Why not? It's perfectly adequate these days. And to be fair, your website, although it's the central hub of where you're going to keep all of your offerings, all your content is going to link back to there, it's not necessarily the first place that people find you. It's more likely that your content on social media is the first place that people will find you. So don't put so much importance on your website that it stresses you out and you lose sleep over it. It just needs to be a central hub that does the basics. It needs to showcase who you are. It needs to look professional. It needs to represent your brand. And it needs to have, the important things like how to contact you, to work with you. Apart from that, it doesn't need to be all singing or dancing. It just needs to look smart and be user friendly. So I think the answer to that is to keep it simple. What would you say to that, Andrea?
I agree. 100%. And there are a lot of people in our circle that are really loving Wix these days.
Yeah.
So it's advanced a lot. I hated it 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So it's advanced a lot, and it can be completely sufficient.
So, so when I was talking to Dr. Raj on our Instagram chat, she asked me, how do you get over imposter syndrome? And the context of that is she was talking about when you go onto your website or onto social media to blog or do a Facebook Live about a particular topic, when you're presenting yourself as the expert on something, how do you get over that feeling of, oh, I'm an imposter, I'm not really an expert? And I said to her at the time, and I want to make sure I say it to all of you guys, I think the answer to that is to stop trying to be perfect and just being real instead. I go live all the time on Facebook and I record stuff for YouTube that I do not edit the mistakes out of, because who's got time for that? It's just, mistakes are human. I think really perfectly polished content is, particularly when it's video, I think it's kind of a bit of a turn off sometimes because it's not real. I think mistakes make you human. I think they make you relatable. I think when my caps all cross my keyboard, it's funny and people like that. And the people that don't like that are not my audience. I think you need to remember that not everybody is your tribe. And yeah, it's not about being an imposter, about being qualified or not. It's about showing up as you are, and you will be the right person for some people. And those people are the ones that you can serve. You can't please everybody. So that's really what I think. And then I have a couple of questions for Dr. Andrea from Dr. Raj, which I think are more up your street than mine. So one, on our Instagram chat, Dr. Raj asked me about perfectionism. How do you turn off that perfectionism thing? And I know that you're a recovering perfectionist, so I thought I'd get you to answer that one.
Yeah, that's always a fun one. Yeah, well, First and foremost, it's to just recognize that we are all human and we are all imperfect. I definitely feel like, as a medical doctor who trained in America, there was this very intense need to get everything right and to always, have the answer. But in the real world, when you're sitting with a patient right across from you, what sets one doctor apart from another is their bedside manner and their willingness to open up their heart. And so I always come back to, these days, some of you know this already, I'm a more spiritually leaning person. It's like, who are you? I mean, there is no perfection in human form. It doesn't exist. So why try to make that one's ideal? And if you instead come back to your heart and know that you are this pure spiritual being that happens to be in a human body this lifetime, and you're here to share your gifts to make a difference, the intention and the energy that's behind that is what matters most. And so for me, it took a while to repetitively remind myself of that and to realize, like Sarah said, if you start putting out more content and you start doing things more, you start to get more feedback from people, and they will tell you, oh, that really helped me. Like, oh, that really resonated with me. And over time, if you allow yourself to receive that feedback, you realize, wow, I didn't have to be perfect. I just needed to show up. And with my heart of compassion and truly wanting to be of service, I've made a difference in this person's life.
So true. Charlotte's just said, if you talk to everybody, you talk to nobody. And I think your answer and my answer kind of complement each other in that way. It's just about being who you are, and just, I think the right people will find you because they'll resonate with your frequency. And something I used to do, it's a bit perfectionistic, was I used to try and teach too much at once. And I think it was sort of like, look how much I know, look, I'm really qualified. And all I did was scare people off. The people that I was talking to, the coaches and the healers that I was supposed to be helping, were just like, we can't absorb all of this. And since I've learned how to pare it back a bit, it's resonating, it's landing better because it's not overwhelming. And it shouldn't be about me going, look how much I know. It should be just about me telling you guys what I think you need to hear at your level, and not trying to shove too much stuff down your throats too early.
Yeah.
So I hope I haven't feature blasted anyone today. Trying to keep it all calm. And there's one more question I had from Dr. Raj on Instagram, which was about, do you worry about covering content or having a niche that somebody else has already covered or somebody else already does? And I thought that was a good one for you as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I say don't worry about it. I think I went live on Facebook today as well, saying there really is no such thing as competition, and the world cannot get enough content, whether it's a book or it's a song or a movie or a therapist or a training approach. We are always hungry for more information. And no matter what, the way you deliver something, even if it's in a similar message or niche to me or someone else, you're always going to have your own special sauce, your own flavor. And it doesn't matter if someone else has been there longer, who has a bigger voice or a bigger audience or seems more famous. The reality is that with the world changing as it is, and people are awakening and they're finding new voices, we like finding that new, fresh voice that isn't so haughty or taking themselves too seriously. We like feeling that there's a certain resonance. So even if you have something that's similar to someone else, share it anyway, because their being there is just proof that there's an audience that cares about that topic. So forget about competition, forget about scarcity. There's enough for everyone. And if you show up as your authentic self and give generously, people are going to find you and appreciate that.
Totally. Absolutely. Dr. Raj says, yes.
Awesome.
Cool. Well, have I filled everyone's head up to here sufficiently? Is everyone like, that's enough? If you guys want to ask me stuff later, then feel free to send me an email or hit me up on Instagram. We've got a replay of this, so when we've stopped recording, I will probably spend quite some time trying to upload it to Google Drive because it's going to be a really big file. So I'll probably